57. We're on Yuma 57, Nun Zion Amud Aleph.
Whose birthday is it?
Whose birthday? What do you mean, whose birthday?
Turn around. Turn around.
Oh, I had all my different grandchildren had different birthdays. Yeah.
Okay.
So, Amar le'ahu min al Rav Chanina. A certain min said to Rav Chanina, Hashta bari tmei mosu. We know for sure you Klal Yisrael are tamei. Dichsiv tumasa b'shuleha, which is a pasuk in Eicha, that after the Churban, Klal Yisrael are considered tamei. And the pasuk says, Ashocheni. So since tuma, somebody who's tamei cannot go into the base of Mikdash, how can the Shechina be with Klal Yisrael? By the way, this fits with the definition of min as my min Yeshu Notzri. There's an opinion that the word min actually means the Christians. And we know that there was a succession theory that the early Christian fathers wanted to say that Christianity had superseded the Jews. That with the Churban, Hashem showed that he basically divorced the Jewish people. Now he's having a new Jewish people. That was the theory of supersession by the Christians. And so it's not surprising that this min would say, your own psukim say that because you are Tomei, the Shechina can't have anything to do with you. So Rav Chanina responded to the min, Amar le tochazi maksiv buhu. Look at the pasuk, Hashocheni tam besoch tumasam. The Shechina dwells with Klal Yisrael even in the midst of their tumah. Afilu bizman shayut meim, Shechina shuri beineim. Okay. The chidover alamed behekesh chozrim alamed behekesh. So we learned the number of hazos by the goat from the par, right? So, and then they went ahead and learned the sprinkling on the parochas from what they did in the Kodesh Kodoshim. There's a rule by Kodshim that if you learn one thing by Hekesh, you can't turn around and take it to another halacha behekesh. So the Gemara answers, it was not just the Hekesh alone, because the psukim themselves say you have to do hazah. They didn't invent the concept of hazah. So hanich l'mandamer lo hekesh. That when you have davar acher, it's not considered a hekesh. L'mandamer hekesh. Since there was some limud behekesh, according to that mandamer that says it's a hekesh, how can you have a two-stage hekesh that doesn't work by kotshim? Michael Lememar. So the Gemara answers, "B'koim esud gami madodi." The hekesh compared the Kodesh Kadoshim to the Heichal, but not the Hazos. So it wasn't the Hekesh. The first Hekesh compared the giving of the cow blood to the goat blood. The second Hekesh connects the Makomos, that you maza on the Parichas the same way. But the two Hekeshim are basically not the same. They're different Hekeshim. Or Iboy Sem, if you want, I'll give you an answer. That it was all the learning of what to do in the Heichal from the Kodesh Kodesh was all learned in one Hekesh. It's not considered sort of a two-stage Hekesh. When the Kohen Gadol stood in front of the Paroiches, he sprinkled towards the Paroiches, but he's not meant to sprinkle on the Paroiches itself. The Romans had taken all the kelim that were available, the Beis Hamikdash, captive to Rome. And Rabbi Elazar, on one of his visits to Rome, said he saw the paroichas. And I saw the word drops of blood on the paroichas from the parvasor of Yom Kippur. So you see that they were mazah directly on the paroichas. So the Gemara says that's no proof that he saw blood, that it's Yom Kippur. Dilma de Parlam Davar Shel Tzibur Shrevad Azor Avu. There were other times that they sprinkled on the parochas. For example, when the Sanhedrin made a mistake in Psak and they had to bring a par helim Davar Shel Tzibur, it was also done a zrika on the parochas, not in the Kodesh Kadoshim, but in the Heichal. So the Gemara answers the Chazad Davidi Kisidron. They saw that it was like drop after drop, like we do. Achas, achas, v'achas, achas, v'shtayim. So it looked like the typical pattern that they would see on Yom Kippur. Now, this dialogue, this sort of dialogue occurred when we were learning about Parlam Davar Shel Tzibur. That they're also, that they didn't do it specifically on the parechas, they did it towards the parechas. However, in nagu, if it touched, it's not the end of the day. He confirmed the story that im nagu, because he viewed the parochas in Rome and had seen drops of blood on it. So the Gemara says that's no proof because Dilma de Par v'sor shel Yom Kippurim. Maybe the drops of blood he saw on the parochas had nothing to do with Parlam Davar Shel Tzibur. Maybe it had to do with the par and the Sor of Yom Kippur. So the Gemara says no, because the Chazina David Shaloi Kesidron. It wasn't, the blood wasn't there in a way that looks like the way it was sprinkled on Yom Kippur. It looks more not Keseder, which fits more the theory that this was Parlam Davar Shel Tzibur that they had sprinkled on the parochas. Then Nisarvu lo damim b'damim. The two, let's say you're supposed to sprinkle the par in the Kodesh Kadoshim, the parochas first. Then you shech the goat, and you go into the Kodesh Kadoshim again separately with the goat blood, and you sprinkle in the Kodesh Kadoshim and the parochas in that order. What if you shechted both animals? You did it by mistake, and then you have a mixture of blood in one bowl. So how should you apply the blood? He does the regular sprinkling, 1 above, 7 below, and they're both the par v'sor. It counts as if you sprinkled the par v'sor separately. So Amrua Kamed Rav Yirmiyah. This halacha was reported to Rav Yirmiyah. Omar Bavloi Tipshoi. These are foolish Babylonians. Mishum de Bar the Chashuch Amishmaitz de Machashkan. Because they live in a dark land, they say, Torah that it makes finster for the Eugen. That turns black. Because if you do it the way he suggested, HaKoyov Lamaila de Sorma coming mata de par. If you take the mixture of blood and you sprinkle above first, then you've sprinkled the goat prior to sprinkling below for the par. To teach me kaladama par. You first have to do the achas lamala and achas lamat and sheva lamata for the par, and only then sprinkle the blood of the goat above. And here you're ruining the Seder. Rather, says Rav Yirmiyah, Rav Yirmiyah noisin achas lamala, v'sheva lamata l'shem par. You have a mixture of par and goat blood in the bowl. So what you do is you sprinkle 1 above and 7 below, but you say this is for the par. And then you've accomplished both. What if the blood mixed prior to giving the sprinklings in the heichal on the parochas? You've done the Kodesh Kodoshim, that was done properly. But then the goat and the par blood mixed. Sover Rav Papa Kamed Rav Lememar, and the achas had already been done above. So he says, Noisen Sheva Lamata L'Shem Par, U L'Shem Sawyer. So he'd give 7 below for the par and for the Sawyer. V'choizer v'noisen achas lamala l'shem Sawyer. And then he does 1 above for the go. Prior to this, we called you foolish. Now you're foolish of the foolish. You didn't learn anything. If you do it the way we just did, by gifting 7 below for the Sawyer first, you gifted below before you gifted the goat above. And there's an order, you have to give it above and then below. That if 1 blood has been given above for the par, noisen shevel mata l'shem par. With the mixture, you sprinkle 7 below and you say l'shem par. The choizer v'noisen achas lamala v'shevel mata l'shem Sawyer. And then you would have done it in the proper order. What about nisarvelo koisus b'koisus? You have 2 kalim, and you don't know which one has the par blood and which one has the goat blood. They're in 2 separate vessels. They haven't mixed. So what do you do in that case? So noisein v'choizer v'noisein. From one of the cups, you give all the matonos in the Kodesh Kodoshim and by the paroiches. And then you do it again. The first one you do l'shem par, and the second one you do l'shem Sawyer. The choizer v'noisen shloisha pamim. And then you do it a 3rd time, because perhaps the first time you did it, it was the par, and the second time was the Sawyer, and the 3rd time will be extra. But it's possible that the first one you gave was the Sawyer. And that doesn't work. You need to do par vis Sawyer. So therefore, by doing 3, you'll cover all bases. Mixes tamim nisarvulo. Some of the blood was separate, but some of the blood got mixed. Umixes tamim lo nisarvu. So pshita ki yov mivadoin yov. So initially, you know vadai, this is the par and this is the Sawyer. You go ahead and give those giftings. Now, how do we treat the remaining blood? At the end of the process, after you've sprinkled from the blood, you're supposed to take the blood to the outside mizbeach and pour it on the yesod. That's the shirayim of a properly gifted blood kli. Oy dilma, or maybe you'll say this is now dichui. This is pushed aside because you already gave a vadai par and a vadai Sawyer gift, and therefore this is nidche. It's not considered shirayim. Va'azli lama may you just dump it out. So a key, there is a debate if somebody received the blood of a korban in 2 kelim. So the second kli is considered shirayim to the first kli. So even according to that, mandamar, that's hanamili echidi boile meis of motzi yoiv. Technically, if you receive the blood of a korban equally in 2 kosos, you could throw either kos, and therefore the other one would be the shirayim for it. Aval hai, in our case, which we described, which you already had vadai par and vadai Sawyer blood, which you already gifted. The iboy lemeis of lomatza yoiv. So you couldn't. These are mixed blood, so you wouldn't be vadai knowing what to do, and you wouldn't be able to gift each kos the same. Then maybe we don't Even that Mandomar who normally would say it's Shiraim, here he wouldn't say it's Shiraim. Lo. I could learn Pumfakir. Afilu Mandomar, even according to the opinion, that once I receive blood in 2 kosos, I only need 1 kos, so the other kos becomes nitcha. But that's hanimili the dachi biyadayim, because I did something active. I actually sprinkled blood from the first kos. I biyadayim, I rejected the second kos. Aval heicha de lo dachi biyadayim. In our case, you didn't do an act that made it nitcha. It fell. Each one fell into the other. You didn't do anything, so maybe it wouldn't be nitcha. Look. The Tanya, that any blood that's left over, you're supposed to pour it on the yisod. It says the same thing. Instead of receiving the blood of a chatas in 1 kos, you received it in 4 different kosos. And then you're supposed to apply the blood on the 4 corners of the mizbeach. So here you took 4 kosos, the nosan maz mizbeach achas mizbeach shekul nishpach, that you apply a little bit of blood from each kos on each corner. The din is the blood in the kos that remains is considered shirayim and are poured on the yisod. That's called dama yishpach. What about I've collected the blood in 4 kosos, but I applied the blood, all of it from 1 kos, and I didn't do anything with the other 3 kosos. So here, the remaining 3 cups that you didn't use get thrown into the irrigation ditch. It's not a shirayim because no blood was used from that kos. The blood that's left over in that original kos, that you would pour in the yisod. But Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Shimon Omer, I received the blood of a chatas in 4 different vessels. And I gifted 4 corners from 1 kos. This Mandomer says that all 3 remaining kosos, even though no blood has been taken from each kos, kulon, nishpach, and yisod, they're all treated like shirayim, and they're all poured on the foundation. Talmud loymar, ves kol damo yishpach. And what's the nafkamina? Rabbi Shlomo Rishon Naksiv ves damo yishpach. Any blood that remains in the neck of the animal that comes out afterwards, that would not be poured on the yisod, but rather would be poured into the irrigation ditch. After he did the gifting of each bowl, the par in the Kodesh Kodoshim, and then on the par to the paroichas. And then he gifts the Kodesh Kodoshim from the goat, and then on the paroichas. Then the Mishnah concluded, you poured the 2 bloods together. Tanan Kemanda Omar Ma'arvin Lekronis. This Mishnah is going like the opinion that to apply the blood, the last application of blood, is going to be on the 4 corners of the Mizbech HaPnimi. Our Mishnah that said you pour them together is of the opinion that you apply a mixture of the bloods to the corners. You don't apply the par separately and the sawyer separately. But we're going to see there's another opinion that holds that you do apply them separately. Where do we see this machlok? Is the Itmar. Rav Yoshiv, Rav Yonason, Chadam Ma'arvin. Prior to the application of the blood on the 4 corners, you mix the par and the goat blood together. The Chadam Ein Ma'arvin, no. You apply first the par on the corners and then the goat on the corners. And I'm going to prove to you, Tistayim, the Rabbi Yoshia Udama Marvin, that Rabbi Yoshia is the one that holds that you mix them together. The Omar Avagav de Liksiv Yachtav, Kimandich Siv Yachtav, Dami. When the Torah says achas, because it's going to say, the pasuk is going to say, you sprinkle achas one time. It's as if you said you sprinkle them together. Even though it doesn't say yachtav, together, kimanda d'chsiv yachtav dami. Since it says you have to, the pasuk says, v'yatzal mizbech hashlef Hashem v'chiper alav v'lakach midama paru midama soyer v'nosan al karnos mizbech sovi. That's the pasuk. So you mentioned both, but you didn't say yachtav. But Rabbi Yoshia is of the opinion that if you mention two things, even though you don't say yachtav, you can mix it together. So the Gemara says that's no raya. Afilu teim Rabbi Yonassinu. We could learn that maybe it's Rabbi Yonassinu who's the one who says you mix it together, because shiny ocha d'chsiv achas. It says v'chiper Aaron al karnoisav achas bashana v'lo shtayim. So maybe Rabbi Yonassinu will agree, since it says achas, that you mix them together. Now the Gemara is going to say, Tanya delokishanuyim. I'll quote you a baraisa now, not like we've been learning. Not the way we gave an answer. Rather than according to the previous havamina we had regarding the concept of yachta. The baraisa says, V'lokach midama paru midama soyer, v'nosan al karnosa mizbech savi. Take from the par and the damasar blood and place on the corners. Shiyumu rovin div Rabbi Yoshia. You have to mix them. So that's very clear that Rabbi Yoshia is the opinion that you mix them. Rabbi Yonassinu amar mazeh b'fnei atzmo mizeh b'fnei atzmo. No, you apply first from the damapar, and then you apply from the damasoyer, each one independently, and then there'll be a debate between them. Okay. So